Hello, this is Stephen Warren Hill. I'm the principal author of Red, White, and Who, the story of Doctor Who in America, and the program director for Chicago TARDIS. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Larry, it's Fraser, and you use they all say who is Doctor Who? Where is he from?
What does he do? They wonder who is Doctor Who? So I ask you, who's Doctor Who?
Welcome back to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast, the podcast that explores that fantastic world of Doctor Who collecting and all kinds of Doctor Who merchandise. And sometimes we just talk about Doctor Who. Brought to you in part by Forbidden Planet and Bags Unlimited Incorporated. I am Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been collecting Doctor Who since 1981. That marks 45 years of experience in this area. So I hope I can use that experience to help all of you out there. Welcome to our 98th episode, celebrating Doctor Who collecting and much, much more. Just in case you are tuning in for the first time, I opened one of the first Doctor Who stores in Chicago back in 1984. We exclusively served Doctor Who fans at a time when there was not much out there to help with. The store was called Bundles from Britain, and we celebrated the 40th anniversary a couple of years ago. It was a lot of fun. We're celebrated in a book called Red, White, and Who, the story of Doctor Who in America, unfortunately out of print at the moment. So please write to ATB Publishing, that's Arthur T. Bloomberg, and ask them to release the rights back to the authors so that Zepo Publishing might be able to reprint that book. We are part of the Direction Point Doctor Who Podcast Network. You can find some great Doctor Who podcasts at directionpoint.org. And if you are a podcaster and you're not part of our network, what is stopping you? There's no cost to join, and it's a lot easier, I should say, to work with us and help increase your audience. Unless, of course, you've already got a big audience and you don't need us. Well, I don't know anybody who's ever said that. Okay. Anyway, directionpoint.org. And you can join the ranks of some great podcasts out there. You can listen to Time Streams, Police Box in a Junkyard, the Doctor Who Target Book Club, Doctor Who Literature, Traveling the Vortex, Time Ram. I like to say that. Time Ram. Okay. And for more information on that, you know the website, directionpoint.org. Speaking of links, of course, 2 links that every collector should have at their handy, whether you use bookmarks or however you store your links. But the first one, of course, is timelash.com/TARDIS Library, or just go to timelash.com and select TARDIS Library. It is a vast database of Doctor Who media items, including books, vinyl recordings, VHS tapes, Blu-rays, including what's coming out and what's been published in the past in publication order. That site is free to use. You can set up a free account to keep track of your collection, at least in that area. Sorry, no magazines or figurines or anything like that. If you need to look up something that you're trying to figure out or want to see if it existed or deep dive in a research base, you need the Doctor Who Toy Box. And that's at doctorwhotoybox.co.uk. And of course, that's the transcendental toy box of David J. Howe. And I use that all the time. I am a contributor to that site. If you're looking for great Doctor Who items at great prices, look no further than DoctorWhoStore.com. Alien Entertainment has what you need, and they're currently running many specials and sale items. And if you live in the area, Chicago, west suburbs, you can select free pickup from the store to save on those shipping costs, although they are very reasonable when it comes to shipping. While you're there, of course, browse the incredible selection of Doctor Who and other fantasy items. The Lombard location is usually open Wednesday through Saturday. However, it is convention season, so call first, and you can get that phone number at alienentertainment.com. You can also find some great items at Forbidden Planet, but you don't need to go to Forbidden Planet. You can go to our website, DoctorWhoCollectors.com, and search there and buy from Forbidden Planet and a little bit of that sale helps our podcast. Thank you all those who have shopped on our site. Don't forget our own eBay store. We've got a lot of Target books, a lot of other items that were recently listed. So check us out. And of course, all the proceeds do help the podcast pay its bills. Don't forget Who North America. Keith and Jenny and that wonderful shop opened up down there in Canby, Indiana. You can find them at whona.com. And come down next October to Doctoberfest and have fun there and shop with many vendors, including Who North America. And, of course, our friends at the Who Shop in London. Recently had some great conversations with Alex from the Who Shop. She was at Chicago TARDIS, and we had a great connection there. Of course, many of her shop workers do listen to the show, so thank you all out there at the Who Shop. You can find them, of course, at thewhoshop.com. Don't forget the at the beginning, thewhoshop.com. And of course, on our website, in addition to all the podcasts from episode 1 to the present one, we have the complete guide to classic hardcover books. I have a pretty decent collection of Doctor Who hardcovers. I'm only missing 2 titles from the entire run. And we have information on all of those books, including reprints that some collectors don't know about. So check that out. What's going on? My next appearance will be at Consinity, which is the gathering of the geeks at the Milwaukee School of Engineering at the Dirks Building on Saturday, April 11th. More information, of course, at consinitycon.weebly.com. They don't have the guests posted there yet, but I am a guest. I will hopefully be presenting my panel on evolution of the Daleks in books, and I might be doing another panel as well. But I'll also be signing copies of Fantastic by Zepo Publishing, where my Doctor Who story and 100 others appear. I also recently appeared on the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS podcast. You can find that on YouTube, and no doubt I will be returning. One of the comments said, "Bring Blairy back every week." Thank you. If you would like for me to present at your convention or festival, or if you want me on your show, just contact me at drwhocollectorspodcast@gmail.com. Back to the website for a moment. A lot of rumors about those hardcover books, including third printings that don't exist. But you can always, I'm always on the lookout for concrete proof of books that we might not list because we haven't found proof of them. But if you have proof, we'd love to see it. We don't want the book necessarily, but if you could send a photo of the front cover, the spine, and the title page with the copyright, it shows the printing, we'll be happy to credit you, and that will help and probably frustrate some of the collectors out there. Thank you. On today's show, I'm talking, speaking of Zepo Publishing, I'll be speaking with Nick Seidler and Libby Shea from Zepo Publishing to talk about this new book, Fantastic. And you'll want to catch that. It's a great discussion. I want to thank our patrons, of course. If you are a Patreon patron, we thank you. Exclusive video content, including the interview with Peter Purvis, is there for a $15 subscription or above, and we'll be adding more to the site as more subscriptions pop up. So you can find us there at patreon.com/Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. If you're not a Patreon person and you just want to help us out, no problem. We accept PayPal at drwhocollectorspodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to Podbean at drwhocollectors.podbean.com, click the patron button, and subscribe at any level you feel comfortable. All this money does help pay the podcast bills. Our theme song is Who's Doctor Who, composed by Barry Mason and Les Reed, performed by our friend Fraser Hines. You can hear this podcast anywhere you get your shows, including Apple, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Podbean, and many more. We are a Direction Point Network podcast. So after the break, we'll have my time, our main story, and of course, the most outrageous offer. Stay tuned.
Traveling the Vortex
Are you ready to embark on an epic journey through time and space? Join the thousands of Whovians around the world who've discovered Traveling the Vortex, the ultimate Doctor Who podcast for die-hard fans and curious newcomers alike.
Every week, we dive deep into the Whoniverse, discussing the episodes, theories, and hidden gems. We dissect the Doctor's adventures, share behind-the-scenes stories, and explore the legacy of this iconic show.
Traveling the Vortex brings fans together, fostering a global community of Whovians. Whether you're a fan of classic or new Who, there's something for everyone.
Join us on this incredible journey as we unravel the mysteries of time and space.
Don't miss out. Subscribe to Traveling the Vortex today on your favorite podcast platform.
Traveling the Vortex. Your ticket to adventure awaits.
Traveling the Vortex is a proud member of the Direction Point Podcast Network. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hi, I'm Juliet.
And I'm Nathan.
Experience Doctor Who from the very beginning through a classic fan's eyes.
And through the eyes of a new Who fan.
Reminisce and relive those classic moments with Nathan as he offers fun insight.
Or experience them for the first time with Juliet as she dwells on social issues, history, fashion, and the size of a flashlight.
We're the Time Streams Podcast.
Find us on Spotify, Stitcher, or Apple Podcasts. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
It's my time.
Hello and welcome to My Time. It's been a great couple of weeks. First of all, big happy birthday to Tom Baker, who turned 92 not long ago. If it hadn't been for Tom Baker, I don't know how my childhood would have went. Watched a lot of Tom Baker growing up. Of course, I started with John Pertwee, and the way the Chicago market showed the episodes, they showed them out of order, and they made like a critical mistake. After they showed a bunch of Pertwees, the next episode I saw was very confusing to me because it was Doctor Who, but I didn't get it. It was a different guy. A guy with curly hair and a scarf and all that. They had shown Underworld after the last Pertwee episode. And I was just like, okay. But then after they finished Underworld, they went to Robot. And as soon as I saw the opening scene in Robot, I was like, oh, I get it. I didn't know it was regeneration. I just thought, oh, that's how they change. Okay. So I just kept watching because, that we didn't know in America about regeneration. We didn't know. There was no Doctor Who merchandise in this country until maybe a little bit came in 1979, but most of the market happened in 81 or 81. I bought my first items in 81, and it was just, wow, I didn't realize that this stuff existed. And of course, that's how it all started 45 years ago. It got to the point where, I established lots of, pen pals in the UK, and I was able to import things pretty easily. And enough items had been, gathered here that I had plenty in the collection and lots of extras. So I said, I've got enough to open a small store. So that's what I did. In 1984, I opened up Bundles from Britain, and the rest is history. And speaking of which, that story that you have, your Doctor Who story, is very important. And it took a ingenious idea by Zepo Publishing, and they're a relatively new publisher, and they're run by people I know, decided to do a book. And the book is called Fantastic. And it has my story in it, as well as many other stories, and stories of my friends and stories of people I've never met. But I've signed so many books already, people I know, people I don't know. So it's been a very fun ride. And so I hope that you're looking forward to our main story, because we're going to talk about Fantastic with the head of Zepo Publishing, Mr. Nick Seidler, and one of the people responsible for editing the book, Miss Libby Shea. So there you go. That's basically what's going on right now. So anyway, thank you for listening, and stay tuned for the main story.
The vervoids are probably the best dirty joke in Doctor Who.
They're hermaphroditic plants.
A lot of plants are.
So there you go. It's based on science.
No, they'll ship anything.
There are probably 11 and handle shippers out there. You just have to drill a hole where his mouth is, and you're all set.
You know he needs the room. I've seen it in pictures.
I'm not saying you're not a fan. I'm saying you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Doctor Who gives a drunken Doctor Who podcast for the end times.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors podcast. Keep collecting.
Up there is the scanner, those are the doors, that is a chair with a panda on it. Sheer poetry, dear boy.
And now it's time for our main story on the Doctor Who Collectors podcast. A few months back, a wonderful book came out, and it wasn't a book about Doctor Who or a Doctor Who story, but about Doctor Who fans' stories. And bringing that story to publication is a publishing company called Zepo Publishing. And I have with me today not only the CEO of Zepo Publishing, but one of the most important people on this project. The book is called Fantastic, a celebration of fans discovering Doctor Who. Please welcome to the show here, Mr. Nick Seidler and Miss Libby Shea. Welcome.
Thank you for having us so much, Larry. What a kindness. This is my first time on the Doctor Who Collector podcast, and I am a big Doctor Who collector.
Yeah.
So I've gone to many of your convention shows and where you talk through collectibles, and I'm just very proud to be on this podcast finally as a guest, which actually means a lot. And so I would love to talk collecting, but also we'll talk about books as well. And
everything is on the table tonight. So
yep. and Libby is one of the big people who are part of Zepo Publishing, so I'll actually let her introduce herself.
Sure, please.
Hi all. I'm Libby Shea. I contributed to Fantastic. I was also the editor of Fantastic, which was a lot of fun, and we've got some stories about that. And I am also a co-author for another book that we've done, How to Celebrate Your Fandom, as well as a contributor to a couple other books.
Wonderful. As I'm trying to get my focus to work here, unfortunately, new camera. There we go. That's pretty good. We got Fantastic here. Well, great, Libby. It's great to have you here. You also are a very important person at Chicago TARDIS. You run the Gaming Citadel. So yes. That's a wonderful place. I love presenting games there and having fun there. It was one of my favorite events at Chicago TARDIS. So it's great to have you both. It's always nice to talk to people who are as enthusiastic about this subject as I am. So that's wonderful. But let's talk, first of all, let me ask about Zepo Publishing. So my listeners will be tuning into this, and some from as far away as Australia and the UK. I've got one listener in Finland. So tell me the story behind what prompted Zepo Publishing's invention.
Yeah, wonderful question. Thank you for asking. Mm-hmm. Zepo Publishing came about really because just for myself, I've been involved in writing or editing a number of different books, some related to Doctor Who, many that are related to gaming. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I've edited role-playing games or helped write role-playing games for many years. And very often when me and some of my friends or the people that I know, some of who you've had on the podcast, some who include you, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Have as we've tried to do some of the projects that we were interested in, we love Doctor Who. So there've been a number of times that I've pitched to other publishers, hey, I think there's a lot of Doctor Who fans. This is like a great series. We should do a book about, and then fill in the blank. So one good example of that would be, Steve Hill, along with Jennifer Adams Kelly and then Sean Lyon and then Arnold Blumberg all got together to come up with the idea of doing Red, White, and Who, the story of Doctor Who in America, right?
Yes.
Always
within arm's reach of me, by the way.
Amazingly good book. And then later, I was fortunate enough to have been brought in on that project. And then Libby actually even did some of the research for that project as well. So she got involved in it. And I know you were interviewed for it, Larry. So
yes. I was.
But as finding publishers for books about Doctor Who can sometimes be a little bit hard. And so even as we came up with ideas, we were like, well, let's pitch some ideas that we have, right? And not everybody bites on the ideas that maybe we might think we're most passionate about, right? And so a number of years ago, about like 4 years ago, I finally said, I need to be able to create my own publishing company so that I can get some of these stories told and do some of the books that I and my friends would like to do and be a part of. And so we started publishing books. Our first book got published in 2024, which was a book called How to Celebrate Your Fandom.
Yes.
Which was written mostly by Doctor Who fans, though it celebrates all fandoms,
right?
Whether it's sports or science fiction or anime or Pokemon or car collecting or fashion. It was really a guidebook for how anybody could celebrate your fandom. From there, we just started really doing a bunch of different books, and Fantastic is the first book of a number of Doctor Who books that we're going to do that we're very excited about because we're very involved in Doctor Who fandom. And so that's kind of the story, shortened a little bit with some of the bumps and bruises taken out.
Right.
but it's really so that we can make sure that we do the projects that we want to do. And the one last thing that I'll say about Zepo Publishing is that we started with our book, How to Celebrate Your Fandom, which ended up winning a number of different awards, which we're very proud of. Yes. International Book Awards, just because it was a very unique book. And from there, we really felt that we should help give a voice to fans. So as we embarked on the book Fantastic, we really wanted to allow fans to have their voice, to get people involved so that they could write and be a part of the different Doctor Who books. So we were very excited about that. And so that's a little bit where Zepo Publishing is, where we're trying to include Doctor Who fans in our Doctor Who books.
That's great. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing because I know after many years of reading Doctor Who books of various things and knowing others in publishing, for instance, like David J. Howe with Telos and the various people who came in and out of WHL and Target and all that and deciding what to publish and who got to do this and who got to do what. I certainly understand your frustration because I've been down that road a few times myself. I used to work in the publishing industry myself, so I know exactly what you're going through. I worked in the marketing end of a larger company, and the place from idea to finished product is a long, bumpy, sometimes windy, sometimes U-turny road. So
true.
Oh, so I applaud you on that. Plus, it's an excellent book. It's a book that of course, my story. I didn't realize how, to my story in the book, I had no idea that my story meant anything to anybody until about 2016 when I attended my first Chicago TARDIS. Believe it or not, that's the first one I attended, and didn't know anything about it. Didn't know who ran it, didn't know who was there. And I wandered around the place kind of looking like, wow, I remember how this went back in the 80s. And I run into a gentleman, I have a conversation with him and back and forth, and we finally realized that I'm the ghost of Christmas past, and I'm talking with Gene Smith, who was my partner 45 years ago. So we had an instant, it's like, really? This is still going? And I thought, oh, that's the moment I woke up and said, wow, this is really something. So I said, I got to get this down and figure out, what did I do back when I was, because I was 15 years old when I started this whole thing. And I'm like, so I wrote it down, and I'm glad I had a place to put it in Fantastic because it's a really nice place to include. Libby, what was your part in Fantastic? What was your role?
So I interviewed for it. I wrote for it. So my Doctor Who story is also in there, which was very cool to see. And I also got to edit the book. So I got to read it very early on, once all of the submissions have been given. And I got to, I was given the directive by Nick of, you can, read through this, make any grammar changes that need to happen in order to make it readable. But the number one thing is don't change the author's voice, because everybody's unique perspective comes through in how they write. So it was extremely important for us to not lose any of the voices that came through, which honestly made it really fun to read. Grammar notwithstanding, we did have quite the bit of editing to do, but I think it came out fantastic. So I love using that fun. It's so much fun.
I did. I want to ask this because I know I've heard this story, but many of my listeners haven't. But I understand that was not the original title, and there was a little bit of a, I want to say a lightly friendly scuffle to get the title changed. So could you share that story?
Yeah, that's actually in regards to our first book, but I still think it's worth talking about, which is good. So, and it was really Libby who really helped solidify, I think, Zepo Publishing as a whole. So the first book was How to Celebrate Your Fandom.
Right.
And originally when we got together, it was Rob Warnock, Stephen Warren Hill, and myself were at the Gallifrey convention in Los Angeles. And we'd just been at a panel, and it was a panel about fanzines. And at that panel, they were talking about how hard the entry point to fanzines is. They're like, oh, you have to learn how to use like Adobe, and you have to type stuff up, and you have to learn how to lay things out. And I walked out of that panel, and I was like, what did I just witness? Like, all you need to do is like write down whatever you think on a piece of paper, make photocopies of it, and I'll read it. Like, I want to know what other Doctor Who fans are doing.
And that's exactly what we did in the 80s. I mean, fanzines were
exactly.
We didn't have Adobe.
Yes.
Adobe was a thing they did in New Mexico. It was a piece of paper, sometimes in a typewriter, and you had a mimeograph if you were lucky because that's the ones I traded back in the day. But I just said that's hilarious. But go ahead.
Absolutely, and no offense to anybody that was on the panel. I think some of them have become so good at doing fanzines that they were used to doing semi-pro or even professional zines at that point, as opposed to being encouraging first-time fans to just do what works for you. So the three of us had originally thought of, we should do a thing about how you can celebrate your fandom and how you can get involved in what you're doing. And we didn't have that title at the time. And we originally called the book How to Be a Super Fan. And when we called the book How to Be a Super Fan, we meant for it to be a primer for new people to like learn what to do. Go to a convention, write your own fanzine,
right.
Get into cosplay, review an episode, start a club. And as we sat there, we were thinking about it, and we were like, hey, we need to make sure we have the right team for this, because we need some younger people and different perspectives as well. And we decided to bring Libby in. And I kind of want her to take over the story at this point, because she said to us in no uncertain terms, if you use that title, I will not be a part of this book. And I'm going to turn it over to her to tell the rest of the story.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much exactly what I told them. We sat down, all four of us, and I looked at them and I'm like, if we use that title, I'm not going to work on this book, because that title inherently invites gatekeeping. And all I could think of is like 5th grade Libby getting told by some of the other kids, no, you can't be a fan because you don't have this, or you haven't done this, or whatever it is that they made up in their heads to consider somebody a super fan of something. And if we were going to target this for, kids, teenagers, older adults who are just entering into a new fandom space, we cannot start off our book automatically gatekeeping them to make them feel like anything less than the fan that they are. That wouldn't be fair to them. It's not fair to fandoms. It creates a toxic environment, and I was not willing to kind of be a part of that. So I said, look, we have got to change this title. We cannot call it How to Be a Superfan. We're going to get so much flack for that. That would not be good.
And it was Libby herself who came up with the title, How to Celebrate Your Fandom. She's like, I could get behind something like that. And it was like one of those like moments where everybody in the room looked at each other and we were like, yeah, you are exactly correct. And there was no pushback from anyone. And one thing that Stephen Warren Hill always says, which I have the highest regard for Steve Hill, and he says, it doesn't matter how involved you are. If you enjoy something, you are a fan. You do not need to have any more than that. If you only like the David Tennant era of Doctor Who, that's okay. You are a fan. If you only like classic Who, that's okay. You're a fan. If you like it all, and you also like Big Finish and the comics and like extra stories and fanfic, and that counts for you, you're a fan. That's okay. And if you only like Vincent and the Doctor because you are an artist, then that's the one episode that resonated with you. You're still a fan too. And that's really the approach that we've taken across all of our books. And so when we approached the book Fantastic, we wanted a range of anybody who was interested in writing about Doctor Who. They didn't have to be so into the show that they knew every episode. And Libby can maybe talk about this too, and the variety of entries that we had in the book.
Sure.
Because we did not significantly edit anybody's contribution. So if some people, if somebody said, what's the first episode that you ever saw? And a person just said, Rose. And that was their answer. That was good enough to be in the book.
Sure.
And then some people would be like, and I think you were like this, Larry, because you were very exact, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I was.
But, like some people are like, the very first episode I saw on Tuesday night on, January 5th, 1973 at 5 o'clock at WTTW or whatever the answer was, right? Some people had very exact and good memories and stuff. But, maybe Libby, if you want to talk about the range of entries that you read as the editor,
Sure, please.
Yeah, so, the range of entries that we ended up getting was all across the board. People that had been there since the beginning, people that have just found it within the last 2 weeks of sending in their entry. And it's a lot of fun to read everybody's span of entries, because when you boil down everybody's experience, ultimately it's the same. It boils down to, I found something that I enjoy. Whether or not I have other people supporting me in that interest doesn't matter, because this is where I'm at now, and I have found a community out of it.
Exactly.
So it was really cool. And honestly, Nick, props to you for how you laid out the book, because the way the book is laid out is each person has their own section, and at the top of their first page is just their name.
Yes.
There's no other defining features other than what the individual people have defined of themselves. So it is so easy to go through that book and get lost in the stories and feel and see your own experiences reflected back in every one of the stories in some way, shape, or form. You can put other experiences that you've had with maybe other fandoms and say, I found this other fandom in the exact same way that you're describing how you found Doctor Who. And it's extremely heartwarming to be able to go through and see yourself in every one of the stories reflected back.
That is true. That is true. And, I remember, when I first got this book, the first page I went to was Gene Smith's story, because I knew Gene from 1984. And from, the conversations I had with him many years ago, his memory is not as good as it used to be. But he told me he started watching Doctor Who in England because he was born there. He, was raised there and then came over here and started watching it about the same time I did in the 70s, in the mid 70s. So I thought, wow, that's really something. And then how, and how our paths crossed was completely random. So it was a really interesting way to, I opened the book to a random page. I'm like, oh yeah, I do know this person. Let me read their story. And I haven't found the way to write it from cover to cover. I just like to open it up randomly and see whose thing I land on and find out more about that person's interests and fans and all that. And it's a really well laid out book, and I'm glad it came out in hardcover too. So that's and props for the dust jacket. We love dust jackets as collectors. So
yes.
That's a wonderful thing with the flaps and having your name on the flap. That was really nice too. So.
Yes. I really want to give a shout out to Elijah Kraling.
Yes,
so Elijah Kraling is a Doctor Who fan from the Minneapolis area, amazing
did a great
graphic designer and artist. And he is the person who actually designed the cover of the book, as well as like the dust jacket and a lot of the elements of it. And he's a top-notch graphic designer. I have the highest regard for him. And he did a great job laying that out. And he and I had conversations when we got to like the dust jacket, because a lot of people will put on the inside of the dust jacket like a description of the book. And we stuck with the original paperback version on the outside. And I really wanted to find a place to put every contributor's name, every writer's name.
It's there
on the cover of the book, and on the dust jacket, we were able to do that. So literally every single person gets their name on the book as they truly deserve. I also want to say something about what Libby said, which I love, right? Which is the stories end up defining who the people are, not their, we originally asked for like their age, what country they were from, and we chose not to include any of that to make it almost a universal experience. And I'll let you know that we had contributors who are from Germany, from Australia, from the UK, from Turkey, from Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, of course. So we had entries from all over the world. And the stories, kind of like Doctor Who in general. Doctor Who is such a positive and such a good series, a series that really talks about the best of humanity, really, right? That's really what the book carries over into it, right? Reading all these stories of people. Like Libby said, you find yourself in every one of these stories.
You do, absolutely. The stories actually bring you a little closer to the person. And then, like it's nice to. I've read stories of people I've never met in this book. It's really nice. People I would love to meet if I ever saw them in person, because they have such a great expression of their fandom, and doing that in this book. Now, I'm not sure yet. I haven't looked it up, but I think this book is now on the TARDIS Library website. I don't know if you know that website, the timelash.com/TARDIS Library. He has tracked every Doctor Who book from 1963 to the present day, and I think your book's on there now.
Wonderful.
So he even has a link to where to buy it and all that. It's a free site. Dan O'Malley.
Thank you, Timelash. I got to give them a shout out. Thank you for helping support us. We appreciate that.
We'll do that. I've known Dan for several years. He's a great guy. He keeps it up there. So it's a place where it's a book now that's becoming the attention of a lot of Doctor Who collectors as well, because they want to get all the books. For instance, I know David J. Howe. He orders one of everything. So I'm pretty sure this will end up in his care at some point. And it's a wonderful thing to add to that library, because I know it's hard to see because I could not get the camera to work right, but books line the entire wall of my room here. And
yeah, we can see that. Yep.
It goes, and they go back to 1964. So it's really quite it's almost like overwhelming sometimes. I've had visitors come here and go, "Whoa." That's a lot. I said, well, 45 years. So it takes a long time to build an empire. But what a wonderful thing. Let me ask, so were there, in the submission process, were there any stories that jumped out at you more than others, Libby? I'll go to that one.
Yeah.
I don't remember whose it was, but there was someone in there that wrote about going up against a life-size Dalek for the first time. And
Wow.
I remember writing a note to Nick because I know that he reads all of the notations that I wrote for the editor's copy. And I wrote a note to Nick and I said, I feel this in my soul. Facing life-size Daleks are terrifying. And so like I said, right? Like you find yourself in every one of the stories or every one of the experiences. And there were a couple of times where I wrote little annotations like that because I was so excited to hear their story reflected.
Yeah, I mean that is
that was one of my favorites. That one made me laugh.
Okay, Nick, was there a story you saw that jumped out at you?
You know, seeing them first, really, because they get sent into the Zepo Publishing email, and then I sort them and stuff, and I usually read them all just to make sure that they're okay, so that I can give feedback right away. Just because of timing, I don't always have to have the opportunity to give critical feedback. So just in case somebody gets a reply from me going, yes, we got this, thank you for being a part of the project.
Right.
We're not trying to be short. We're just dealing with hundreds of submissions, right? Like, so,
yeah.
And I just want people to know that just in case, but it's fun to read every one of them. I remember there was one entry that stood out to me, which is actually kind of interesting, which was Meg Atkins, who's a fan in the United Kingdom. So she was very excited because she is kind of a fan of Ncuti Gatwa and had actually made like a Barbie shirt for him because he had been Barbie and made a special shirt for him. Well, lo and behold, guess what? They came out with a Ncuti Gatwa Barbie, right? Which is as the Doctor, which is cool. And if I remember the story correctly, I'm probably wrong about a couple of the details, but Ncuti actually, it was either the doll or when they released the doll, Ncuti wore the shirt that she had made for him.
Oh, that's nice.
So like sort of her own contribution to Doctor Who kind of became canonical in its own way, right? Kind of like this element of what's going on. And if I remember correctly, I think Ncuti just recently actually followed her. So he follows her now as a fan, which is kind of fun. And I saw that she had a picture of her holding up her copy of Fantastic. And he was like, oh, what? Ncuti said to her, hey, congratulations on you now being an author and writing about Doctor Who, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
And I just heard that story like a day or two ago. So what's fun about that is you read a story about how somebody does something passionate and nice, right? Really acts like the Doctor to somebody else. The actors of the show who bring us so much joy, or maybe those other fans that we become really close with. And then how that just spreads positivity. And that's the thing that I love the most about doing these kind of books, right? Just the love that kind of gets shared. And I'm not afraid to use that word, but for the best of us, if there's one thing that we need more in the world is understanding and love, and acceptance of people. And I can get behind all of that.
I can't agree more. We need definitely more of that. In the world of Doctor Who, it's a lot of peace and love, which is wonderful. People are the nicest people. At least in my 40-year experience of being in conventions and doing Doctor Who, I've never had a negative experience with another fan. So that goes very true.
That's so true.
So what's next for Zepo in relation? I know I did another form for another book about, but I'll let you talk about the next project.
Absolutely. First, I have to be fair and honest and say that there were a few people that actually made submissions to Fantastic that just because of how things worked, kind of got missed for inclusion in the book. And I just really want to, if they're listening to this podcast or whatever, I want to say that was never intentional. We always want to include everyone. We later found out that spam filters moved some submissions into spam. Okay, it might have just been how they came through or what happened. And so one of the things that we want to do is we hope to include everybody who got missed into a supplement that it's the same questions. It'll just be added, and we hope to put that onto the Zepo Publishing website. So if somebody had originally submitted, we intend to still include them, though that'll be a PDF download that they can do from our website, and that way they can still, quote unquote, be a part of the project. In a way, that's also a great way to see what the submissions are like for others. So we'd like to do that. But Fantastic has already been so successful for us as a publishing company because it's been a popular book that even before it was done, we thought that we would work on another book. And we now have a few ideas in a row.
Okay.
And the next book, and we invite every one of your listeners, Larry, if you are a Doctor Who fan, you are invited to be a part of this book. If you want to, if you've always wanted to be in a Doctor Who book or write something about Doctor Who, please be a part of this. Okay. And the next book that we have is a book about stories that scare Doctor Who fans.
Yes.
And it's going to be called Behind the Sofa and Under the Bed is what we're calling it.
I love it.
And this is another case where Libby actually helped with the title. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Libby.
Please. Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, so originally this book was just going to be called Behind the Sofa, Stories That Scare Doctor Who Fans. And I, being an American fan, did not understand the reference to Behind the Sofa all that much, right? Of course, as a young child in America, we get the concept of like running behind the sofa, right? And like peeking out and watching. But for us over here, it was more of the like hide under the bed because you're scared of the monsters under your bed, right? So when Nick and I were talking one day and I was like, you should call it, Behind the Sofa and Under the Bed to just, again, lack of gatekeeping and like being more inclusive of majority of fans, right? You generally have one or two concepts of like what you do when you're scared. So if you call it that, then it's a more reachable, more understandable, and honestly, just kind of a lot more fun of like who's hiding behind the sofa and under the bed.
We really want everybody to be a part of that.
I like naming things.
And I want to clarify, like, some of us may be older adults and may not actually be scared by Doctor Who and hide behind a bed, right? You know what I mean? Or hide behind a sofa, right?
Yes.
So please answer those questions about concepts that you think are scary about Doctor Who. You may not actually have been scared. And it's okay to say Doctor Who's never really scared me. But when we got the original entries from Fantastic, there were some people who had started Doctor Who at An Unearthly Child at the very first broadcast episode, and they wrote in their descriptions, I literally hid behind the sofa when the Daleks were on. And that's a little bit what inspired this second book with follow-up questions. So, but if you weren't scared by Doctor Who, talk about the ideas that might be scary in Doctor Who. Might not have
if you were creeped out, you should be writing something for this book. And I know everybody was probably creeped out in the most recent series. So you have material.
Yeah, there's a lot of material there. I remember I filled mine out already, but I'll go ahead and just summarize what my experience. My first Dalek experience was when I was 5 years old, and the Peter Cushing movie aired on Saturday TV in the afternoon, and that red Dalek scared the crud out of me. And it's still to this day when I hear that grating, whatever voice it was Roy Skelton who did the voice for that, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's intended to be frightening, scary, and metallic. And I had nightmares for days. And I remember my parents going, maybe you shouldn't watch that anymore. But I'm like, no, I'm still going to watch it. I'm still going to go back. But, and then later when I saw Genesis of the Daleks on TV, that it came back because those voices were so strong and terrifying and grating. And if you compare that to like after watching all these years of Doctor Who, you compare back to the original series, and those voices weren't quite as grating as they are today. And still kids, because I've talked to UK friends who said, yeah, they were positively frightened when they saw those come out. And because it was a new concept. Nobody had ever come up with a concept like a Dalek. And now, every kid in the UK knows what a Dalek is, whether they like Doctor Who or not. It's really something how that came about. But as far as creeping out goes, I know the one that I'm thinking of is the one of the special the series that they just did, the special where the arms were too long and they're dragging their arms up. That creeped me out a bit.
Wild Blue Yonder.
Blue Yonder. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really super creepy. So there's so many avenues. and depending on, when you started watching the show, obviously you're going to have a different reaction to different stories, to different monsters or villains or things like that. And some of them you're going to laugh hysterically because it was just that, Pirate Planet still makes me laugh out loud because it was intended to. It was
of
Douglas,
course.
Douglas Adams and all that. But wonderful! I can't wait. I will have the link to submit to that book on the website where this podcast will be published, along with links to Zepo Publishing and anywhere the books can be found. So
thank you.
We do that for. All of our guests get that courtesy. Obviously, we want to make sure that people can find it. And if they come,
absolutely.
And so,
and I'll just say out loud that if you go to Zepo Publishing, and Zepo is ZEPO, so 1P, so ZepoPublishing.com, and then you go to the books tab. The books tab is where you can download the questionnaires to be a part of those books. And there's actually 3 questionnaires up there right now, 3 different books we're working on. One is the Doctor Who book, Behind the Sofa and Under the Bed, right, about scary Doctor Who stories. There's another book that we're working on, which is about horror films. So if you were just a fan of general horror films, we're working on a book that has a tentative working title of The Tuesday Night Terror. And if you just want to talk about how you got into horror films, or maybe it's watching the Red Dalek on TV, feel free to tell that story. And then we're actually working on a 3rd book, which I'm working with Taylor Dethridge, who's one of the people who helps organize the Chicago TARDIS convention. And she's working on a book with me about Doctor Who cosplayers, specifically people who cosplayed Doctor Who. So if you are a collector, or if you are somebody who listens to Larry's podcast here, who loves cosplaying Doctor Who, and cosplaying Doctor Who can be pretty broad, right? That could be you cosplay the Doctor, you cosplay a companion, or, as you know, Daleks or the TARDIS, or original characters that you have in the Doctor Who universe, because some people like to Doctor Who role play, for example, and they play their own characters that fit into the Doctor Who universe. Those are all valid, right? And we would specifically love to hear from people who are cosplaying Doctor Who, because we just think that's a really interesting, and it's such a developing part of Doctor Who fandom, and it's something that especially like a lot of younger people like doing. Kind of for the first time. Sort of, for a lot of people, it's their first entry into Doctor Who fandom. And I'll let you know, my favorite collectible of all of my Doctor Who collectibles is still the scarf that my mom knit for me in 1983 and gave to me in Christmas of 1983. And it has sentimental value for me. And it's still one of my favorite things to do. And it's basically like my first Doctor Who cosplay thing. So, and I still value it to this day. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. I've been known to wear the costume myself. It's a lot of fun. And I've had some guests on the show who are cosplayers, like Abby Rago, who I recently found out she's a former student of mine.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea. Of course, I didn't know her married name and all that, but I taught her in elementary school, so it was a long time ago. But she does such amazing things. Or Jen Greeley, of course, who's nationally known for her work with cosplayers. I think it's a wonderful idea, to bridge, because all of that stuff goes together with the world of Doctor Who. But since I'll go ahead, and since I'll move into the collecting part of it, Nick, tell me about your experience collecting Doctor Who. When did you start? What's your most prized possession? Things like that.
Oh boy, there's a lot going on there. So I like you have been collecting since 83 would have been when I got my first collectible, right? Which would have been from my mom. That Christmas, I was also given 2 photos of Tom Baker, production photos, and also my first book, which was a Target novelization of The Power of Kroll.
Oh, yeah.
Those were my very first ever Doctor Who collectibles. I got them all at the same time. And when I was watching Doctor Who, this would have been while I was in high school, really my freshman and sophomore year I started, I would lay all my collectibles around me when I watched Doctor Who. And over time, had to stop doing that. And just talking about significant collectibles that I myself have, and I've been collecting for a long time, and in some cases, I've been at the right place at the right time.
Sure, that's part of it.
But I own 5 screen-worn costumes from Doctor Who.
Nice.
So I own 2 gas suits from the Caves of Androzani 5th Doctor episode. I own a full Hyperion Guard costume from the 6th Doctor episode, Trial of a Time Lord. And then I own 2 parts of a costume from modern Doctor Who and the episode Resolution, which is Ryan's father's shirt and also sweater jumper.
Oh, nice.
So I own all of those, which is neat. Probably the collectible over time that's unique that I have is I own Terry Nation's original script of episode 1 of Genesis of the Daleks.
Wow, that's nice.
So that went up for auction at the Gallifrey convention. And so I bought that, and Genesis of the Daleks was the first episode that I ever saw. So to have that Terry Nation's original episode 1 script of that is very meaningful to me.
Did you ever get to meet Terry Nation, by the way?
I did. I had a chance to
good.
see him at the Intergalactic Expo in '89 in Chicago. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Libby, do you do any collecting?
So I don't do more material collecting. I'm very much more of the experiential collecting.
Nothing wrong with that.
So there are 3 experiences. Well, I've got quite a few experiences. But I think 3 are probably my top 3 experiences that I've ever gotten to do related to Doctor Who.
Okay.
I'm a huge Doctor Who role player. I'm a game master. As you said, I run the Chicago TARDIS Game Citadel, and I am one of the leads of our role-playing game tracks. So we're running role-playing games all weekend between my friend Jenna and I. We're the 2 main game masters. We've also included other people coming in and going. But through the Chicago TARDIS Game Citadel, we've had a bunch of the actors come in and play some of our games that we've created for them. So the first experience that we had with somebody actually coming in and playing was Arthur Darvill. He came in and played the Rory Adventure game with us, and then he signed it.
Nice.
And if anybody wants to see that, it's actually up on YouTube. You can go search Arthur Darvill Plays Rory Adventure game with Chicago TARDIS. That's up on YouTube, and I got to game master that game.
Nice.
So I got to run it, and I had forgotten that I had run that game because it was such a surreal experience for us that I had forgotten that I game mastered it until like last year when Nick's like, "Yeah, you game mastered that, Libby." I was like, "I don't remember that." But still a super cool experience. And then the next year, Nick, I'm blanking on his name.
Was it Chad? I can't think of his name right now. I'll cheat and look it up while you tell the story.
Yes, please. Yeah. And actually Elijah was at that Chicago TARDIS as well. So Nick, Elijah, and I got to be in a role-playing game with the actor that played Charlie from Class. Originally,
I met him. I remember. I don't remember his name.
Greg Austin.
Greg.
Yeah.
Originally, we had a bunch of the Class actors there, and they were all going to come in and play on that Sunday with us. But then, weather being what it is in Chicago, they had to leave.
Right.
So Greg stuck around, and he did end up coming in, and I got to run the game for him and Elijah and Nick. And we basically played out kind of what happened after the cliffhanger of Class. So we had Greg play Charlie again and kind of play what we thought could happen. And then, of course, we know Class kind of got canceled. And on that cliffhanger, I was extremely upset because I loved that series so much.
I did too, yeah.
It's such a great series.
I'll add something to that, too.
Sure.
When we did the Rory Adventure game and when Greg played in the Doctor Who role-playing game to finish the series of Class as Libby ran that game.
Yeah.
There were people there at both events that were watching the gameplay and watching gameplay of role-playing games and games has kind of become a thing in, I would say, like the past 6-7 years.
Yes.
Become very popular. So like the Rory Adventure game, I want to say we had 50 to 100 people in the room for that.
Wow.
And when Libby was game mastering the game for Greg Austin, there were some people there who were watching. It was a smaller group, but like they got to kind of see how Class ended, at least in Libby's mind, and with Greg actually playing the Charlie Smith character. So that was a pretty cool experience to be a part of.
Yeah.
That's a great experience. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
The most recent experience we had, and one of my favorites, is 2 years ago at Chicago TARDIS when Joe Martin came for the first time to Chicago TARDIS, and we had created a game called Fugitives, and it's a board game based off of the original board game, The Night Cage. So we basically made a slightly altered version to encompass her character as the fugitive doctor in honor of her coming to Chicago TARDIS and in honor of how much we loved her character and her as an actress. So we created that game, and somebody had went and told her, hey, we have a game based on your character that we created this year. You know, if you'd like to come and see it, you know, we'll be in the game room all weekend. Like, don't feel like you have to come in or anything. But if you're interested, just to, you know, show how much some fans love your character, just to feel that, feel free to come in. And she did end up coming in, and she played alongside a couple of us. And I had forgotten to explain that it is a co-op game. So the very first chance she got, she tried to knock my player off the board. That's on me. I should have told her it was a co-op game, but it was a lot of fun. And one of my friends took a picture of us mid-game, and it's one of the most like freeing pictures I think I've ever seen of myself. Just having a great time with her, and she's such a fantastic person.
Oh yes, I agree. Yeah, and you're right about the experiences, because my first experience at a convention was one I'll never forget for the rest of my life, because in 1984, our fan club went to the Spirit of Light convention in Chicago at the Hyatt Regency downtown, and we were waiting in the lobby because one of our fan club members had done an amazing Davros with a power chair, and we need to load him into the hotel. In fact, his picture ended up in Doctor Who magazine, which is pretty cool. But anyway, I'm standing in the front lobby looking out the window, and next to me was somebody came up next to me and just said, "What a beautiful city." And I turn, it's Patrick Troughton. And
very cool.
I was like, for just a moment, but I said, yes, I've lived here my whole life. And he just said, we just don't have these buildings, and I talked to them for about 5-6 minutes just about the city. And just, I said, well, it's really great that you're here. And it was his first Chicago visit. And so he was looking out at the vast, that's a great view from there. And I spent that much time with him, and I got to share that story with Michael Troughton just this past year, and he said he really loves hearing stories about his dad when he's being just him and not being a character or being an actor or that, and he was just, and of course that was a convention, I think that's the convention where the water pistols broke out and things like that. It was a lot of very famous stories from that show, but that was the first experience I ever had, and I'll never forget it to this day. So that's an important part of the collecting world, more than just things with the logo on it, so to speak. So that's wonderful. Nick, you have any experiences yourself that you remember that clearly?
I have a lot of experiences like that. I'll just say, like, one of the most wonderful things about Doctor Who fandom is just the kindness that everybody shares with one another. My closest friends are all Doctor Who fans, and and I'm going to go about this a little bit differently in the sense that I have a good number of stories and memories that I specifically have of meeting actors or producers or people who are part of the show, right? Meeting some of the people that do the music for Doctor Who is particularly interesting to me because the music means so much to me.
Sure.
So having met the composers of the series means so much to me.
Oh, yeah.
But the friends that I've made, that experience is second to none. And I just want to stay in that space. So when we talk about like the Doctor Who Collectors podcast, I think about all the friends that I've collected because of Doctor Who.
Yes.
And maybe nobody's ever said that on your show before, but that is so valuable to me as a person, and the level of happiness and joy that's brought to me in my life is so valuable. And I mean, like, to me personally, and I wouldn't trade any of those friends in for anything. You know, all of my material, you know, collectibles, the things that I care about, my full range of Target books or my Doctor Who monthly collection, or, you know, my sonic screwdrivers or action figures or the other things I have are all cool.
Yeah.
But they're not nearly as cool as the friends that I have to talk about Doctor Who with, yourself included, Larry.
Thank you, sir.
Right? You know, like Libby here, right? People that I just value so much in terms of like the intelligence they have, the things that they've taught me, and just how wonderful Doctor Who as a series is and how much it brings to people in general. I said this sort of at the top of the show, and that was like just the kindness that you find in Doctor Who's circles. You know, I'll talk collecting for a moment, and a really good friend of mine, John Curtis, who I really had the best time with, he and I would literally go to conventions, wait at the door to run into the dealer's room to get the empty blanks that we needed in our shelf. Or like, I need 3 issues of Doctor Who Monthly or magazine, and I'll have them all. And he and I would share each other's lists, and we would watch out for each other.
Right.
And we knew, yes, finish your own collection, but if you could get something for your friend, that's what we did. And that's the kind of like level of kindness and friendship that I think makes Doctor Who collecting so cool, because I've had friends gift me like the empties, the missing parts of my collection, and that's pretty cool. That's a really kind thing, right? And so that's going to be my story. My favorite thing collecting Doctor Who is friends. So
I like that. That's a great thing, because I've made a lot of friends over the last 40 plus years in Doctor Who, and not just actors and folks, but good people with kind hearts, people who absolutely, you know, they come up to you and say, "Hi, I just want to say hello." And those are the people I really love, and I'll stop even if I'm running late and talk to them for a few minutes. That's what's really wonderful about that whole experience. So a wonderful time. I want to thank both of you for being on the show today. My guests today, everyone, Mr. Nick Seidler and Miss Libby Shea of Zepo Publishing. Nick is also one of the house managers for Chicago TARDIS as well. So don't forget, we got Chicago TARDIS coming up next November, Thanksgiving weekend. That's coming up. And of course, also coming up in April, we've got Consinity at the Milwaukee School of Engineering University. So any words about Consinity you want to share with our audience here?
I'll let Libby start, and then I'll follow up.
Sure.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, Consinity is a one-day science fiction, fantasy, anime, gaming, insert fandom here, convention in Milwaukee. It is put on by the students of the Milwaukee School of Engineering, their MAGE organization, which is their, I'm blanking on the actual acronym, Nick.
It's the MSW Anime and Gaming Enthusiasts is what it originally stood for. So.
Yeah.
So they put this on every year, and I've come back as kind of like an alumni helper, giving advice and everything. And it will be, when is it this year?
It's on April 11th of 2026. Yep, Saturday. It's a Saturday event.
Couple months away, but I believe tickets are open.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, yep.
And take a look at our Facebook and our website, consinitycon.weebly.com, for any guest updates, which there should be some coming soon.
Yes, and you'll see that link, everybody, on the front page of our website, because I'm returning this year to Consinity, so it'll be a lot of fun for all of us there. And of course,
I was just going to say, I wanted to give you a shout out. Consinity has always had a Doctor Who component to it. Every year that we've ever done it since the first one, and this is going to be the 26th year of that convention. So anytime you do a 26-year run of conventions, that's a pretty successful event. And I really, if you are a Doctor Who collector, this is an opportunity to meet Larry in person, especially if you're in the Milwaukee area. So if you're in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, or you want to come up from Illinois or visiting, Larry brings some of his collectibles. He's going to be doing a talk there. He'll probably be part of a Doctor Who panel, probably with Libby and Steve and Rob, who come to the convention as well, and a couple other people like Mike Olson, who also helps run Chicago TARDIS, and some other fans that might be there. But this is your chance to meet Larry in person, so please come to Consinity and have a chance to say hi. And if you do decide to pick up the Fantastic book, that's a great opportunity to get Libby's signature and autograph, Larry's, Rob's, Steve's. A lot of the writers, at least from the Wisconsin area, will be at that event, and it's a great opportunity to get your book signed.
That's wonderful. And of course, you can check the website for the links on how to buy Fantastic and other books by Zepo Publishing. My guests today are Nick Seidler and Libby Shea. Thank you both for being on the show today.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you for having us. You're wonderful.
And listeners, please stay tuned for the most outrageous offer.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. Keep collecting.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club Podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Allison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast on the Direction Point Podcast Network. Keep collecting.
All my travellings throughout the universe, I have battled against evil, against power-mad conspirators. I should have stayed here. The oldest civilization. Decadent, degenerate, and rotten to the core. Power-mad conspirators, Daleks, Sontarans, Cybermen. They're still in the nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really corrupt.
And now it's time for the most outrageous offer. The most outrageous offer is a Doctor Who or Doctor Who related item that is priced way beyond what it should be. And today we have a book. Usually it's a book. Sometimes it's a calendar. Sometimes it's a toy or something like that, but who knows? Today we've got a book, Doctor Who, The Power of the Daleks by my friend John Peel. John, great writer, great guy. I've had him on the show before. Hope to have him back on the show again. Power of the Daleks was novelized by John Peel under the, it looks like the Virgin Publishing. It came out later. It was not part of the Target run per se, but it is considered, I guess, a Target book, I guess you can call it that. Was released in 1993. This was sold by Toscana Books, not a stranger to the most outrageous offer, if that is indeed a real bookstore. They are asking for, it looks like a excellent condition book for $1,340.80. Yeah. Okay. Again, in the category of don't think so, not going to happen. I went ahead and looked on Abe Books to see what else was available. And the book's lowest price that you can find in the same condition is $33.96. Okay, I could see that. And then there's another one that's kind of crazy for $127.40. I still think that's a bit high. But then I strode over to eBay and I found a few for about $20 in the same condition. So I don't think you should pay more than $25 to $30 for this book. $33.96, I'll give them a pass. But it's not worth that much. A lot of those were printed, and shame on you, sellers, for selling books for that much money. And of course, in a follow-up, I did talk about the Wheel in Space in another episode. I got a seller out there trying to get $100 for it. And I said, not going to happen. He did offer it to me for 40. And I said, it's still too high. It needs to come down to about the $25 range. And I'm just going to stick to that, because if it doesn't sell, and I encourage you, don't buy it for that much money. That's way too much. And there was no fire. The rumors were busted. These myths were busted. We got the Mythbusters team on it. No, not really, but that myth was busted. There was no fire. In any case, maybe you haven't seen too many for sale, but it doesn't warrant the price. So there you go. That concludes the most outrageous offer, and that concludes this episode of the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I want to thank my guests, Mr. Nick Seidler and Miss Libby Shea, for being on the program. And it was great to talk about that book, Fantastic. You can get that book anywhere books are sold, including at Zepo Publishing directly, or through Amazon or any fine bookseller. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode, our 99th, and we'll see what that unfolds. Until then, keep collecting.
A Doctor Who Podcast Network.